Okay, welcome back everybody to Effing with the Ineffable. I am Zoe,
I'm Smokey Piggleton.
and yeah, we haven't even discussed what the topic for today is going to be.
No, you're
Um,
going to surprise me, right?
I was hoping you were going to surprise me, so we'll see what happens. Um, how is life? How's everything been?
Taking forever.
How is your garden doing? Has it been pretty chilly there? Because it's been chilly here.
It got frosty here yesterday, yeah, and it's raining here today. Really, just a long, slow drizzle, which is good. We kind of needed some of that. So.
Yeah, it's been like not too bad here. It's been kind of chilly, but
My well, you can see my zucchinis back there. They're
yeah,
aching to get out in the sun.
yeah,
Look at them leaning toward the window.
no, we're gonna have to
They're
wait
like
so they don't die out.
It's like Oscar looking out the window. It's like pretty sure there's bunnies out there. What am I waiting for?
Yeah, Oscar's their dog, if you can't tell, but or their, never mind. Um,
A fur baby.
oh,
I hate that phrase.
me too.
Fur baby.
My husband the other day was saying, like, there's a lot of people around here who are kind of like obviously love their dogs like a little bit too much probably, um, and
It's nice to have something to love.
yeah, it's nice to have something that can love you back though.
And you don't believe that dogs are capable of that.
Dogs are not capable of love because love is willing the good of another, and dogs can't will the good of another. Dogs can have tremendous affection for you. They can, like become attached to you. But no, I don't think that dogs will never sacrifice themselves for you. And true love requires sacrifice.
You don't believe that dogs, I mean, at any degree of sacrifice, they don't have any,
I mean,
they at least exercise enough discretion to not bite the hand that feeds them. I mean,
yeah,
is
like I think
it's a weak version of love, but it
I don't think that's like love though. I think that's just like I said, it's like habitual learned affection for somebody who's constantly giving you attention and food and all the necessities of life.
and it's pack behavior. I mean, I'm the alpha, and
But no, I don't think that human I don't think that non-human animals are capable of love.
wow, speciesist.
That's I mean, like, do you think that dogs are capable of like rationality? Like, isn't that what makes humans humans?
Rationality is one thing, but affection and love and willing the good of another is that does that often precludes rationality.
But
you
like,
have to you have to overcome reasonable behavior in order to love somebody.
I'm not I'm not saying that love and rationality are necessarily like go hand in hand or whatever, but I am saying, like, I don't think it's wrong to say that there are things that human beings can do that other non-human animals can't do. Like,
Oh yeah, it's clear.
so I think that like when you're saying
I
that,
asked Oscar to fix my computer the other day. He just looked at me. He was like,
I also, I mean, like, if it makes you feel any better, I also don't think dogs are capable of like real cruelty. Like, they dogs act on instinct, which actually I think it was a Bishop Barron reflection that said dogs always do the will of God because they're always acting on like their God-given instinct,
yes.
which is kind of nice, but like, yeah, at the same
So
time
all dogs go to heaven.
they're not, but that means they're not free. they're not truly free to choose, because they are like human beings.
Instinctually programmed.
Yeah, and like human beings have instincts as well, of course. Like we are instinctually, you know, like prone to care for our own children rather than the children of the child of somebody else, like to pass on our genes and make sure our genes are thriving and whatever. And like, you know, but we are also capable of making a choice to forego that and like make a free choice to act not according to our instincts. And that's the beauty of free will. I don't think dogs have that.
But I'd say even still, like 95+% of our behavior is probably instinctive or programmed, conditioned, whatever. Oftentimes subconscious. We're not consciously considering a lot of things. At least I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking all the time, or at least I'm talking to myself all the time. But am I talking to myself in a way that's really rational and really detached, or is it ego driven? Is it id driven? You know, is it instinctual? Probably a lot of it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think a
so
lot of people just kind of float through life and never really truly deeply examine, like,
they never really rise above the animal.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
people are like that, which is pretty sad because like we are given this capability of doing that. So if you choose to
Yeah.
not do that, like you're not living up to your potential of what you
Right.
can be. Like right now I'm very
But
slowly.
is now here's a good question. Are you happier being human than you would be just being an animal?
Well, I mean, okay, so here's a like a way to think about it, I think. So Ben Shapiro talks about how when you're a single person, your capacity for like pleasure and pain on a scale of like 1 to 10 is goes from about a 0, like you can be pretty sad, to about like a 7. That's like your, as a single person, that's like your capacity for
That's your cap.
your range of like happiness, basically. When
Yeah.
you, then he says like when you get married, it goes from like maybe he says like a 2 to a 7 or something. And then he
It's
says
amplified
when you get married, that stretches out, like because you can
in
feel,
both directions.
yes, you can feel the joy of another person. You can also feel the pain of another person, and that's real. Like when you
And
love,
that's what you feel that dogs are not capable of
well,
responding
and
to.
then he says when you have kids, it goes to like 100 and like negative 100, because when your kids are like sick or hurt or whatever and you can't do anything to help them, like that is true suffering and pain to like have to witness that. When you're, but when your kids are like like when your kids experience something and just have true joy and delight, like not only do you feel happy for them, it also just makes you happier. Like you see things in a better way and you have more capacity for joy. So it's like,
You just feel more intensely that things are right with the world.
so like when, you know, as a dog, your capacity for happiness is probably like a 2 to a 6. Like honestly, that's probably what it is. It's like, yeah, you can, you know, you maybe 2 to a 7. You kind of hover around 5 most of the time. You're pretty just like content, whatever. You can get really happy when you're chasing a squirrel or something. You can get really sad when your owner leaves the house for 5 minutes.
When the squirrel gets away.
Like, but that's real. That's
When you're stuck behind a window and you have to watch the squirrels out there shaking their butt at you. It's like, nah, 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 nah. I'm a squirrel.
that's, I mean, that's like, so like that's the way I think of it. And like by that measure, then of course it's better to be a human being. You also have much more suffering and pain. Like,
Yeah.
and the question is the suffering of life worth it? Is the suffering like justified
Good,
Like,
good topic for today.
and this is
Is
like,
is life worth living? Is
and
the human life worth living?
yeah,
Or
this
would
is,
it be better to just be like given to complete pleasure, just a sybaritic existence?
I've been reading Jordan Peterson's Beyond Order very slowly. But mostly because he's just such a good, clear writer. All like I feel like every sentence is meaningful. It's hard to read something like that quickly because I have to keep because I listen to most of it on audiobook.
Because you have to digest it.
I have to keep listening to it again and again and again because I feel like I finally finished the first chapter. I was like, okay, I finally got through the first chapter, and I still feel like I'm like, I need to go back and re-listen to it because there's just so much in every paragraph that you could mine. But I mean, Jordan Peterson has struggled a lot with the idea of like, is the suffering, the inevitable suffering of life worth it? Is it worth it? Should we be like anti-natalists and believe that life is so, you know, full of suffering that it's not, that it's better not to exist? Um and I actually watched an interview of Bishop
And
Barron.
yet people persist. I mean, some people actually end their lives and become so miserable and so hopeless and helpless that they uh you know take arms against the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. But most people say, well, it's not so bad yet. I'll just wait and see. Maybe things will get better. And there are moments of great joy, I think, interspersed among the uh, just tedium, the brutish sufferings of life.
Yeah, the nasty brutishness. I mean, I watched an interview this week with Bishop Barron and Jordan Peterson, and they talked a lot about this actually, because they were talking about the whole idea of like Jesus being the ideal and Jesus picking up his cross and willingly walking toward the hill to be crucified. Um, and Jordan's like, I am in a tremendous amount of pain, physical pain, all the time, pretty much all the time lately, because he's like been going through all these health issues and stuff. And
He's
he's like,
got like RA or something.
no, but he's still going through the whole like withdrawal issues of his benzos. Like he still has, I'm pretty sure he's still suffering from akathisia, pretty bad.
And post-acute withdrawal. I mean, he hasn't.
I think so. I'm pretty sure because he had to go in like a full coma to like withdraw from it.
Oof.
Anyway, he's got real health issues. And he's like, it's not always obvious to me that the suffering of life is worth it. Like when you're going
No,
through something like that, it's not always obvious that,
it's hard to look past that
yeah,
and say there's a meaning that makes this worthwhile, that makes this bearable.
yeah,
They talk in the Bible about when a woman is having a child, the suffering is intense and blah blah blah. But right after you have the child, the you forget about the pain. It's like you forget that pain. It's
well,
like
yeah,
while you're in it, you recall it. You're intensely aware of it, but afterward, it becomes less salient.
yeah, I've been struggling with this recently because like my husband and we want to have more children, but like I don't know like how far down this road we want to go. But I have been struggling because I had like some bad experiences in the past. Like my two birth stories that happened in the past were kind of I hate the phrase like trauma or traumatic or whatever, because I feel like they're misunderstood and overused by like people in general. They kind of feel like the world, although I don't know, the world is kind of full of trauma. Like the world is kind of a traumatic place. But I mean, like
Welcome to Earth.
I do feel like I have some unresolved issues as far as that goes, because and to the point where it makes me like not want to go through that again. But like the struggle is like I want to have more children. I love my children, and like yes, my children are worth it, but at the same time it's not an easy thing to be. And this is exactly what we're talking about with life. It's like there's
Not an easy thing for Jesus to pick up his cross and say, well, now I got to go die.
yeah, and it's not an easy thing for someone like
Father, if this cup could pass me by, holy cow, can we think of some other
like
way to
please.
do this?
Yeah.
I gotta get nailed to a cross and basically suffocate in my own congestive heart failure because I'm not able to. Oh wow, this really?
And I
Can't
mean,
we Can't we just abracadabra something? Come on, man. You made the world from nothing. You can't do this.
and I've been thinking about this idea of offering up your suffering for, either other people or a higher cause or whatever you want to say, which is something that I kind of don't really understand. It's like I
The
don't,
idea of sacrifice.
not the idea of sacrifice, but being like, if I'm in physical pain, being like, okay, use this physical pain for some other like spiritual good or whatever. I just don't really understand the like
Oh,
currency of how that like literally of how that works. Like how does
the exchange rate. It's like, okay,
that?
well, so I can win graces by hurting? What?
Like
How?
I guess like I've been struggling because I'm like I don't get how that works, but I've been talking to like a couple of friends, and one of my friends said she had this big change in her mindset between, I think she's having her seventh child like in a month or so.
Wow.
And she said that oh my, I was just talking to somebody who said that she knows two people who in the past year, two different people who just had their 13th child. I was like,
Wow.
that's, I couldn't, I don't think like at the rate my husband and I are like able to have children, I don't think that would be possible for us. That'd be a lot. We'd have to have a lot of sets of twins, I think, to make that happen. But anyway, she said that after her first two children, she had a kind of a change in her mindset where one of her children has a health issue, and she went into her third labor being like, I'm going to offer up all of this suffering for this child that he will not have this issue as well. And she's like, it just completely transformed it, where it was like every like pain that she experienced and whatever was offered up for her child. And she's like, it made it like that she could bear the suffering of it. And
Yeah,
to me, like I've been,
because it became meaningful. The meaning of it over eclipses the sensation of it.
yeah. And I guess for me, like I'm kind of coming to realize that I don't know what the currency of the whole offering it up thing is. And I don't know if that even is actually meaningful and works. But I think that believing it does and acting like you think it does is beneficial for you, even if it doesn't do anything else in like the world.
Well, you hate to doubt the wisdom of the ancients because they were onto something.
Yeah.
Uh, it seems like, I mean, it's not just a Judeo-Christian thing. Uh, I mean, a lot of other religions sacrificed sometimes they sacrifice children and stuff, like really severe sacrificial uh, things in the interest of appeasing God or appeasing, fortune or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if that's just a primitive concept that's like, oh, that's foolish. Why would God demand a sacrifice? Uh, but
No, I
but
disagree. I think,
but justice demands a
yeah,
sacrifice.
I think,
Justice demands it.
yeah, I think that makes perfect sense to me. The idea of like sacrifice and God demanding sacrifice makes perfect sense to me because of Jordan Peterson. Thank you again. I think he talked about this in maybe his biblical lectures
Yeah, I'm sure.
where he talks about how, you maybe it was during the sacrifice of Isaac story. I don't remember, but he's talked about,
Right. Yeah, that's one of the most intense. Yeah.
yeah, and he talks about how, just think about, so when we're talking about God, we're talking about the ideal, right? Like God is the ultimate ideal. God is what we're striving for. And we if you think about, like, an example that he has used a lot is, like, think about people who are like first generation immigrants to the US. Like, people will come from all over the world, leave everything that they knew behind, come here with, like, whatever they had. They could probably fit it in a small suitcase, all of their belongings. They
Yeah.
come here, they work so hard. Some of them start businesses, some of them just work, menial jobs, whatever it is. Like, we know people who were, who came from Mexico to here for the hope of a better life for their children. Those people aren't really, like, I don't think most of those people are sacrificing for themselves because they know that they're going to come here and struggle and work hard. But they're coming to be like, I want to give my future generations the hope of something better than what we had. And that just makes sense. And that is a sacrifice. That is sacrificing to God, the ideal, saying, like, I'm going to give up everything I knew, everything that's familiar to me. I'm going to come here to this place where I don't know the language, where I
Right.
have to, work literally whatever job I can take so that in the future I can have a better
Take
life.
a leap of faith.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you walk by faith and not by sight. You don't know what you're walking into. You don't know what's going to happen, and none of us do really.
yeah.
That's. But yeah, you say God demands the ideal of God demands a sacrifice. I think love demands sacrifice. You were saying
Yeah.
that when you bring the love of children into your heart, you bring children into your life, it expands the degree to which you can both suffer and experience joy.
Yeah.
And you have to trade that off. You have to trade off the saying that I'm willing to suffer more uh, in order to have these children in my life. Hopefully, I can enjoy them at some point
Yeah.
if they ever pull their heads out their butts.
Still waiting. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, and the sad thing is, like, this is a question I really wonder about, because, like, so I'm a very, as a melancholic person, like, I have a melancholic temperament, which I've talked about before, but, like, I kind of overanalyze everything. Like, I think about things very deeply, which is not always a good thing. That can be a bad thing for sure.
Sure.
But I've always been the kind of person who just, like, kind of thought about things deeply, but as I've become less naive in the world, I've realized that there really are people who I think just don't consider things like this. Like,
Yeah.
I think there are people who have children and never really think about, should I have a child? They kind of just fall into it.
Do I have what it takes?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're it's like Jesus when he's talking about uh, nobody sets out to build a tower and doesn't think about how much it's going to cost. No, Jesus, you're wrong. A lot of people set out on a lot of missions in life
Yeah.
and they don't give it a second thought. It's
Yeah.
like, should I? Could I? And I often say to my kids, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
And I mean,
Think,
think about like,
think about it.
yeah, especially with something like becoming a parent, because of course the ideal is to fall in love with somebody, have a mutual life that you desire to create with somebody, decide to get married, and then have children together in a thoughtful manner.
As a team.
Yeah, but there are lots of people who literally just hook up with somebody one time and become a parent. Like, and that it takes so little
because they're
thought.
because they because they're drunk enough or he's cute enough.
Yeah,
Okay, let's conceive.
and it's like, so
No thought, no thought about tomorrow.
that's kind of a scary thought that like there's people who kind of go through life.
That's
But
what we were talking about on that animal level.
yeah,
You're not really considering what's going on in the future. You're just responding to the now.
yeah, and that,
Knowing if you think about it, which you don't, because if you thought about it, you'd have fear and trembling.
yeah,
But being a fool, you rush in and you do things without any thought of the future, without any consideration, and then it just no plans, no uh, no skills, no ability to manage it. It's just pure animal.
yeah. But I kind of, it's like people talk about like a mental health crisis in the U.S. or whatever, and that like so many young people are depressed or whatever. But you know, this is just the Jordan Peterson show. I talk about him nonstop. But like honestly, Jordan Peterson talks about how you don't, and we've talked about this on the show before, I think, but you can't get what you're not aiming at, right? Like you have to aim at something to be able to make your way toward it. If I'm just driving around in my car aimlessly with no idea of where I'm going, like I'm going to go a lot of places, but I'm not going to get anywhere. And
Right.
I feel like a lot of people kind of, I mean, even,
They just drift like a tumbleweed. They
yeah,
just go wherever the wind blows.
yeah. I have, people in my life who are like this, who are kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do with my life, which is like, it's okay to not know what you want to do with your life if you're like, well, then let's try to find out. Like,
As long as you, it doesn't matter what the details of what you do, it's the principle of why you're doing it.
yeah,
As long as you've got the right principles, you're gonna find the right details.
yeah.
The the how will work itself out if you know the why.
The man who has a why can bear any how.
There you go.
That's the lesson of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and I love that. Like that changed my life when I read that, because it's like that is, I mean, if you want to know about suffering and how people make it through suffering and how people pick up their crosses and walk toward it despite the suffering of the world and choose to bear the suffering despite, or bear, like choose life despite the suffering, read Man's Search for Meaning. I mean, he talks about how the only people who made it through those concentration camps were the people who were living for something other than themselves.
Who had a faith in some, yeah,
And
in a higher power.
even
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl, I mean, he talked about how the thing that got him through it was the hope of seeing his wife again, even though I don't think he ever saw his wife again. I'm pretty sure his wife died in a concentration camp. It's been a while. But the fact that he had that hope of like, I'm living for
He had a
something else.
mission. He had a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, you know,
That's why so much, you know, you talk about this mental health crisis, and you talk about your own trouble trying to rationalize pain and the suffering that you considering putting yourself through. Um, all that stuff, if there's a meaning to that,
yeah.
you can bear it.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. And
it's when you're hopeless and helpless, and you feel like, I'm suffering, there's no good reason for my suffering, there's no end in sight, there's no value to it, it's not getting me anywhere, it's just pointless misery.
yeah.
That's when people kill themselves.
And not only kill themselves, but take other people out with them.
Right.
You know, like Jordan Peterson talks about the Columbine shooters, and he talks about how he read the letters of the Columbine shooters, and it's like they were deeply entrenched in that satanic nihilistic idea of like life is not worth the suffering, and it's better to destroy life than to let it go on,
than to bear it.
And that's when you get to the point of like, I'm not just going to take, it's one thing to, you know, commit suicide. It's another.
My life is not worth living.
It's
but when you say all life is not worth living.
Exactly.
That's trouble.
That's when you start. I mean, that's
why I always encourage people, if you're considering murder, suicide, start with the suicide. See how that works out, then move on to the murder if that's really gonna, you know.
Man, I had something else to say and I can't remember, but that's all right.
Well, this is kind of a downer of a show.
No, but I mean, we're talking about how, like, I mean, like, life is full of suffering, and the thing about it is,
this is the day the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. Can we? And that's, you know, and that's part. I think that's part of the tonic. I think that's part of the elixir that makes it worthwhile. Is if you're looking for rays of hope, if you're looking for reasons to carry on, those reasons are plentiful out there too.
Yeah.
You just have to get over yourself and kind of look around and say, what can I be grateful? How can I cultivate that, you know, corny old attitude of gratitude?
Yeah.
You know, it's corny, but it's very effective.
Yeah. I mean, I have my prayer journal that I write in. I try to do it every day. I haven't been doing it lately, but
Same.
the first, I'm also behind on Bible in a year. It's been a rough couple weeks. Anyway,
the Bible's still there when you want to catch up.
Thank God. The first thing I write in my Bible journal every day, or in my prayer journal every day, is my thanks. All of my thanks that I want to say for the day. And we
lead with praise.
And it's like, yeah.
Praise you, Lord, for your great,
And like
Marines lead the way and Judah leads the way. Come on.
It's interesting how even on days where I'm really struggling mentally, whatever, or even physically, or just having a hard time,
feeling discouraged.
Yeah, and I have much more things I want to ask God for rather than praise I want to give to him. Like, once I get into it, I could literally any day, even the worst day, I could endlessly write things that I'm thankful for, because you just look around and it's like, I also try to write every day, and this is a good lesson from The Hiding Place, is I try to, like Betsy Ten Boom says, he doesn't say to thank him when things are going well. He says, give thanks in all circumstances. So she says, be thankful even for the things that are
Thank you, Lord, for the fleas.
Yes, because you never know. Like, you never know why God's giving you that thing. And good
Thank you
luck,
for Gollum.
good luck, bad luck, who knows?
Exactly.
You don't know if that's going to be a good thing for you or not. So like we've been having a lot of struggles with the place that we live, and we're going to be moving away soon, thankfully. But there's a lot of days where I get really frustrated about the place I live, but I still on those days say, thank you for giving me a roof over my head, because I see people outside who don't have that. And even if our place is terrible and sometimes dangerous or whatever, like it's still better than nothing. And so I need to be thankful for that. And that does
And
like,
that's the scary thing, is that those homeless people somehow have gotten into the mindset where nothing is better than what I had.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, as much as I have been I mean, like, my struggles are pale in comparison. My apartment struggles pale in comparison to some people, of course, but like, I'm nowhere near that idea of
That
like,
just, but
homeless.
that just being mindful of the goodness that's all around us is, I mean, God created the world. The world that God created is still here. It may be obscured by human ugliness, uh, but it's still here. And when God said it's good, it's still good. It's good forever. It's always good.
Yeah.
Uh, it can be obscured. You can take your eyes off the goodness and focus on the badness of things. And it does seem that that is, I mean, like in the happiness trap, they talk about the survival value of being anxious and being worried and
Yeah.
being negativistic and looking for problems even where there are none.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something that we have to overcome, is that continually be a better consumer of our own mental creations and say, thank you, brain, for trying to help me out, for trying to point out potential problems. But you know what? Today I've decided I'm just going to feel okay about stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not going to allow myself to wallow in the what if of trouble that my brain is oriented toward finding trouble,
Yeah.
you know?
And I feel, but that goes back again to what we were talking about the difference between humans and animals. Like, that it is an instinctual thing. It's an evolutionary beneficial thing for us to constantly be looking for problems, because people who don't do that get eaten by things, right? Like,
But it completely undermines our happiness.
yes, but
It
that's
helps,
the
it
thing.
helps us live, but it makes us live miserably.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like, we are able, like you said, so much of our, and most people are consumed by that and never really do the mental hygiene of trying to work through that stuff and tell their brain, no thank you, I'm okay today. Like, we are so like instinctual, but I do think, like, as human beings we are able to overcome that and say, like, yeah, my brain's on a loop, whatever, but I'm gonna focus on what I can fix right now, and I'm gonna leave the rest for later, because there's lots
And
of worry.
I'm going to recognize that's a story my brain is telling me. There
Yeah.
are many stories that I can generate, some of which are going to be much more gratifying and probably more effective.
Yeah.
Uh, so I can choose. Uh,
Yeah.
that is the difference between an animal and a human, is that humans do have that freedom to choose among mental constructs. I don't think animals are just, they're faced with whatever it is that is presented to them at the time,
Yeah.
and they have to kind of take it. Uh, Now that uh, they can respond a lot better than humans do because they don't have prejudice. They don't have any prejudice,
Yeah.
you know. I guess they do have some prejudice. They determine whether things are food or are eaters.
Yeah.
Is this going to eat me or am I going to eat it? That's it's pretty simple formula
Binary.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Humans have a lot more degrees of um, distinction that we make on things.
Well, it's like you were saying about love clouding rationality. It's like it's almost like dogs are more rational in that way, in that it's like there's pretty much usually one clear choice. Like you're not deciding like you're not trying to decide between love and rationality. You're only picking the rational right option according to your instinct. Um, but that but
According to your conditioning, when you say that, it makes me think, oh, animals are smart enough to, you know, when it's over, it's over. They just walk away and they find a new master. But that's not always true. Have you ever heard about that dog from Japan? That
yeah,
that famous dog who like every day for 20 years after his master died, he would go down to the train station and
yeah,
sit and wait for his master to come home on the train.
yeah,
It's like, wow, that's either foolish or it's the essence of true devotion,
yeah,
uh, or,
yeah,
or both.
yeah, yeah,
But uh, you know, that's that makes me think that you know, obviously that didn't make a lot of sense for that dog to do that, but it was beautiful. It was a beautiful foolishness of that dog to continue to go. I mean, it was like, and that they talk about that in the Bible, that Greeks look for wisdom or reasons, and Jews look for signs, and Christians are just fools for God. We just
yeah,
do foolish things. We believe in the cross. We believe that there's some value to suffering that brings us closer to God, and that is the basis of our salvation, and the reason for us to keep living. That's that's pretty. It's hard to understand because it does seem to contradict the world. It
yeah,
contradicts it contradicts the way the world works, and I think sometimes the world works that way in order to contradict that, in order to discourage us.
yeah.
That
Certainly.
there are forces afoot. I don't want to get too diabolical, but I'm sure there are devilish forces that are afoot that are trying to divide us,
Yeah,
uh, if they can. They can't unless we let them,
yeah,
uh, but they will continue to try to undermine our faith and to undermine our reason to continue to live. So, you talked about the crisis of the mental health crisis and all the suicides and all the drug overdoses and everything that's taken place this year.
yeah,
And you contrast that with Viktor Frankl. Uh, I mean, who had the real suffering? Who had the meaningful suffering? That's the thing. Viktor Frankl had a meaningful suffering that he went through. The people these days lack meaning. They lack a sense that their life is going somewhere, that their life is going to be something. They lost a reason to believe and a reason to carry on,
yeah,
uh, and so they just um, lose themselves in drugs and lose themselves in suicide and other self-destructive uh, paths. Um, so
and I don't want to act like this is a new thing, because I think that there was, I can't remember the exact statistics, but I'm pretty sure there was a pretty high suicide rate in the concentration camps. Like,
yeah,
there were a lot of people who thought that this
who
is not
gave who
worth
gave
it.
in to despair?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they weren't living for something bigger than them, or at least like it's like I
and
said.
they felt it was hopeless. They felt, well, I'm going to die. but if I'm going to die, I'm going to die on my own terms.
Yeah.
How I want, when I want, and not wait for these friggin' Nazis to decide
Yeah.
when I go into the oven. To hell with them.
Well, and it's like,
Man.
thinking about it, it's like I said before, like, of course it's worth it to go through the pain of pregnancy and childbirth and all that stuff for my kids. Like, I would do that right now for either of my children because I love them so much. Like, and it's so obvious to me that I love them, but like that doesn't always mean that like the fear isn't there. Like, because
Sure.
it's like pain is one thing, but like my husband and I were talking about this yesterday because my husband had to get some blood work, and he said that my husband is very nervous about needles. Like, he can handle it, but he gets nervous about it. So when he was like had his arm out and was about to like get the needle in, he was like and like the doctor was like, "Are you okay? You're not gonna faint, are you?" But he said it's not the pain of the needle, it's the knowledge that the needle is about to go in your arm. Like that.
The anticipation.
Yes, and that's exactly how I feel about the whole childbirth thing. It's like, yeah, the pain sucks when you're in it. Like, the pain is not fun. I would rather not go through it. But it's like that anticipation of like, if I want to bring another child into the world, I'm gonna have to go through that. Like, that's the hard thing. And that's where it's like, you do have to voluntarily take it up. And like, even if I make that choice, it doesn't mean that like there are moments where that fear and that doubt creeps in of like, am I going to be able to do this? That's really the scary thing, is not like, if I knew like you're gonna go through some pain, but it's gonna last this long and you're gonna be fine. It's like, that I could do. That's no problem. It's both times that I've gone through birth, I've had moments where I literally thought, I'm actually going to die. I can't do this anymore. And that's the part where it's like, that's the scary thing. That feeling of like, I literally don't think I can do this anymore. That's the fear. That's where that like fear, and that's where that like.
That's because you want to keep control rather than just letting it happen.
Because like ultimately I am a control freak. Like and that's a huge problem.
That's where your fear comes in. Your fear is that you're going to lose control and that you're not going to be able to manage it.
Yeah.
So just say, okay, I can't manage it.
Well,
God is God. God is God, and I'm not. It's gonna, whatever will be, will be. It reminds me of a couple different things. One is our deacon had this awesome sermon. It was a couple weeks ago, and he said, okay, one of the biggest problems is fear. How do we respond to fear? Jesus comes into the room and he says, be not afraid. How are we supposed to be not afraid? That doesn't help, Jesus. That doesn't help.
It's like when people say calm down when you're angry or whatever.
Yeah, calm down.
That doesn't help.
All of a sudden, this guy walks through the wall. This guy that we know to have died, and he walks in and he's got these wounds on his hand. Don't be afraid. What? How could I not be afraid?
Yeah.
But he says, like there's a lot of fearful things in life. There's a lot of scary things. There's a lot of threats. There's a lot of threats to our faith. There's a lot of threats to our person. There's a lot of threats to our social network. There's a lot of threats to our country. There's threats everywhere. There's a lot of things to be afraid of. It's how you respond to fear. If you respond to fear with despair and you just give up, that's a thing. That's when Jesus was arrested in the garden, everybody was afraid. I assume Jesus was afraid too, but he kind of kept it together a little bit. Everybody else freaked out. The one guy got grabbed and he ran right out of his clothes and just booked it naked. He just He's just running.
Yeah.
Peter grabs a sword and starts wanting to hack people. People just they panic and they freak out.
Yeah.
And because fear, you can understand fear with two different, what do they call those? FEAR. Uh,
Oh, acronyms?
yeah, acronym. One is forget everything and run.
That's me.
Forget everything and run. Just take off. When the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Yeah.
Just book it. Just get
Yeah.
out of there. Or face everything and rise.
Yeah.
If you face everything, whatever challenge comes to you, if you have the faith that, okay, God is going to help me get through this. If I survive this, I'm going to be a better person, and I'm going to be more skilled. I'm going to be less threatened when this kind of stuff comes up in the future because I've faced it down and I know I can handle it.
Yeah.
So whatever doesn't kill you makes you emotionally stronger.
Yeah.
So face everything and rise up in faith, rise up in confidence, rise up in the knowledge that God's not going to let you down.
Yeah.
Whatever strength you need, he's going to give you the strength when you need it. That's why they say true love casts out all fear.
I was going to say that, like the Bible says, perfect love casts out all fear, right? Like,
Yeah.
which,
if you focus on the love, perfect love comes from God.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, the problem is I don't love perfectly. I love perfectly.
But God loves you perfectly.
Yeah.
And if you have confidence in that, then you can say, okay, God, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how this is going to work out. But Jesus, I trust in you. Right?
Yeah.
Where's my little Divine Mercy sticker here?
Yeah.
Jesus, I trust in you. I know that you're going to have mercy on me, and I know that you're going to take care of everything. The other thing that it reminded me of was Father Dan always used to say, when trouble happens, when crises erupt, the degree to which your faith has become a meaningful, integrated part of your life can be told by how soon afterwards you say, thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
Rather than continuing to focus on the fear, being focused on the, okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like when Jesus walks out onto the, all the disciples are when Jesus is asleep in the boat and the boat is rocking, all the disciples are like, how can you sleep through this? We're about to die. And he says, oh, you have little faith. Don't you know what's going on? And he just whispers and the waves calm down. And it's like, wow, okay. Or he comes walking on the water over across, and they say it's the Lord. It's like, how is it he's walking on the water? How is it the Lord? It's like, well, it is. I mean, you just accept it. And then Peter says, Lord, that looks cool. I want to walk on the water too. If you tell me that I can do it, I'll believe that I can do it. And so Jesus says, yeah, come on, you can do it. And he starts to do it.
Yeah.
But then he realizes, wait, this is me. I'm not the Lord. I can't do this. And he starts to sink.
Yeah.
So as soon as he takes his eyes off Jesus, he loses his reason to be able to stay afloat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's when the fear came. That's when the fear overcame.
He forgot everything and sank.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate a lot to Peter. I've liked reading the Bible more lately.
Very relatable.
Especially I know you guys still haven't watched.
I kind of look like Peter a little bit with all this.
The Chosen is a really good TV show that I like, and Peter in that show is just great because he's very. I mean, they just portray him as like a very flawed person, which he was. Like, if you read the Bible, he was a very flawed person, and
he was totally human.
Yeah.
Totally human. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact
in all the good ways of being a human and in all the bad ways of being human.
Yeah, and I love the fact that when you don't really get this very much from reading the Bible, but like Peter was married. He had a wife. And
Right.
when you watch the show, like that becomes real, like a real thing of like these were real people with like families and lives outside
And
of.
he had a mother-in-law who was like,
Yeah.
who's apparently a good cook.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they show up and it's like, oh, my mother-in-law is sick. And Jesus is like, can't have that. She makes the best. She makes the best hoe cakes or whatever it is that they're.
So they,
So,
yeah, they,
so he heals Peter's mother-in-law. It's like, you got to get better right away because we're hungry.
yeah, exactly. They
Get going.
they show that in the show, and it's a really like interesting moment. But yeah, the other thing I was gonna say about the whole fear thing is I do think that ultimately, like, yeah, what I have is not like a physical problem. It's a mental and like a spiritual issue that I'm like trying to work through. And that's why part of what I've been doing lately is right now we're doing the novena to Mary the undoer of knots.
Oh,
And it's a really good there's this great I'll read you part of it because it's really interesting. Hold on, let me get it up really quick.
you pray, Mary, I have a problem. It seems insoluble to me, but I know that all things are possible with God. And so please pray to the Lord for me and help me to find a way out of this, or help God to lead me out of this.
So, like, the intro for it today said, Saint Irenaeus said, the knot of Eve's disobedience was untied by the obedience of Mary. What the Virgin Eve bound by her unbelief, the Virgin Mary loosened by her faith. Today, let's pray that the Blessed Virgin Mary may, by the grace of God, untie the knot of sin in our hearts and in the world. And there's another part in the actual
And how did she do that?
by saying yes, by her fiat and being like truly open
Exactly.
to the will. I
Let
know.
it be, let it be done to me according to your will.
I
Whatever,
but I'm
whatever will
saying,
be, will be. I'm
but
not going to try to push the river. I'm not going to try to anticipate. I'm just here. Do with me as you will.
but they say the
I
longest
surrender.
journey in the world is from your head to your heart, right? It's like I know that that's true, but it's still hard. It's still hard to like truly have faith, right?
It
Like
takes practice. I think it takes a lot of practice.
yeah, and maybe I'll have to have like 6 more terrible births before I have a really good one. I don't know. And I mean like I
Maybe you need to look back and say they were all beautiful births because of how they worked out.
yeah, of course. And of course I feel that way. And that's why I'm like, we do want to have more kids. It's not like I'm saying I'm so afraid that I'm unwilling to go through it again. But it's still, is that,
Got a,
is that,
got a picture of Smokey Pigleton holding your 5-year-old now. That's 5 years ago.
oh, I
That's
didn't,
her.
I thought that was one of my sisters. Oh,
No, no, no.
she's so cute.
That's that's
I know,
5 years ago.
5 years old. It's crazy. Um, yeah, there's just this great part in the prayer where it says like, uh, where is it here? It says, "You know very well how desperate I am, my pain, and how I'm bound by these knots. Mary, mother to whom God entrusted the undoing of the knots in the lives of his children, I entrust into your hands the ribbon of my life. No one, not even the evil one himself, can take it away from your precious care. In your hands there is no knot that cannot be undone. Powerful Mother, by your grace and intercessory power, with your Son and my liberator Jesus, take into your hands today this knot." And then you say like your intention. And I've been trying to like really pray and believe that because I do think like if
So
I
what's your intent? What's your intention?
to be released from the fear of giving birth enough to like accept it and like be truly open to new life. Like that's all
You
it's
familiar with the 12 steps? Yeah,
somewhat.
I mean, you've heard of the
Yeah.
12 steps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the 12 steps, they talk about I think it's the 10th step. Let me see.
And it's like, it's not like I'm asking for like a perfect or painless birth or whatever. All I'm asking for is to not be so consumed by fear that it like stops me from being open to like the life that God wants to give me. Because ultimately I do want to say yes to God, and I do want to like be open to his will. And I don't want to be so like consumed with fear that I'm prevented from being open to that.
Right. What is the 10th step?
Are you finding it? You want
Oh,
me?
that's the wrong one. Maybe I want the 9th step. No, maybe I want the 11th step. Maybe I want all the steps, but I mean.
Do you want me to read you the steps? I have them here.
You got the one where it's
Which one is it about?
it's about God praying.
Well, okay, I'll just start from the beginning. Number 1, we admitted we are powerless over alcohol. I mean, this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but yeah.
Over life. Just insert the word life wherever it says
Okay.
alcohol.
We admit we are powerless over life and that our lives have become unmanageable. Number 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Number 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Is it that one?
No.
Number 7.
It's number 11.
Okay, number 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Number 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out.
There's the key. There's the key. Don't pray for strength. Don't pray for patience. Don't pray for anything other than knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out. That just to say, Lord, your will be done. It's real easy. I mean,
Yeah.
It's hard to not make it more complicated than that.
It's simple, but it's not easy, right? Like it's
the hard thing is getting over ourselves and not making it more complicated and saying, okay, God, you know, you're awesome, but can't you work any faster?
Yeah.
Can't my will be done?
Yeah. Can't
So
your
how
will
do I?
and my will be done at the same time? Like, yeah.
Father, if this cup can pass me by, let's try it that way.
Yeah.
But not my will, but your will be done.
Yeah.
So even Jesus had that feeling like, oh, you sure there's not a better way? You sure there's not options here?
Yeah.
How do I stop sharing now? I don't know how to do that.
There should be like a button at the top where it says
it says new share, pause share, stop share. There we go.
There you go.
All right. So anyway, yeah, seeking conscious contact with God all the time. God is going to help you through. You know, it always says Jesus is the answer. We always make fun of that when we're on card trips. It's like, Jesus is the answer. Can you think of any questions to where maybe Jesus isn't the answer? Like, what's that smell? Jesus is the answer.
Jesus.
It's like, no, I'm pretty sure it's not Jesus. That's you, buddy. That's
That's Oscar, your dog. It's all back to the beginning. Yeah.
but anyway, seeking conscious contact and wanting to know the will of God. I mean, and Jesus is the Our Father prayer is really pretty perfect in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That if you just say that, you don't have to get a lot more sophisticated or intense than that. You know,
Yeah.
you just have to say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And thy will be done right here.
Yeah.
You know,
And give
and
us
the
this
only
day
way
our
thy
daily
will
bread.
the only way thy will be's done in here is if I get this out of the way.
Yeah.
All this gets out of the way, then my heart can respond in a harmonious way to God's will. But if I let my head keep, or if I let the devil keep pulling my head toward doubts and fears, then the love of God won't be able to shine through me and won't be able to ring true. I won't be a light on a hill. I'll be a scared creature hiding in a cave somewhere.
Yeah. And even like the give us this day our daily bread, like I'm not we're not asking, or we shouldn't ask for more than we need for today. Like all I need is the strength to do what I need to do today. I
Just
don't
for today.
I don't need it. I don't need it for tomorrow. I don't need it for, like 9 months from now or whatever. I just need it for today. And that's, yeah. That and another, this is something that was in Jordan Peterson's first book that has been really helpful lately for me, is that he talks in the last chapter of his book, he talks about how when you're going through like serious times of stress and trouble and whatever, and this is kind of the same thing as like, do you remember the 4 agreements?
Yes. Ruiz.
One of the 4 agreements is like always do your best, but like your best is going to vary from day to day, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I try to think about that a lot. Like there are lots of days where I have high expectations of myself, and then there are days where it's like we just need to get through today and then we can go to bed and start again tomorrow. But like Jordan Peterson talks about how when you're really like struggling and going through times of trial and whatever, like you don't think about how you're going to get through the next month. Don't think about how you're going to get through the next week. Think about how you're going to get through the next hour or the next 10 minutes. Like, because that's what you need to like put your energy into, is like I don't need to worry about having the strength to get through the next month. I need to worry about having the strength to get through the next 5 minutes. And then I can worry about the next 5 minutes. Like, I think that that's a helpful thing to be like, because when you start thinking about too far down the future, that is when you start thinking like, how am I going to do this? It seems so overwhelming. There's so much pain and suffering in life. Like I can't bear all the suffering in life. It's like, I don't need to bear all the suffering in life. I only need to bear the next 5 minutes, and then I can do the next 5 minutes, and then I can do the next 5 minutes. And like, I found that a helpful thing in, in labor. It is nice to be like, hey, I only need to get through this contraction. I don't have to worry about the next one. But even like in running and exercising, like there's times when I'm running where I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna die. I need to stop. And it's like, do one more minute. You can do one more minute. Anybody can do one more minute. And like that, I don't know. I think that that's a helpful thing for me to try to get through like tough times, is I don't need to.
And if this next minute kills you, then you'll never have to do another minute again.
Thank God. Yeah, thank God. And I'll have, yeah. And that'll be fine. If that happens, that'll be fine. Like honestly. So, yeah.
Here's another AA. This is an AA meditation. I really like this one.
Yeah, I've heard this one before, but it is a good one.
Yeah. Just for today, I'll try to live through this day only and not tackle my whole life problem at once. I can do something for 12 hours that would appall me. I don't think they spelled Paul right. If I felt like I had to keep it up for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Just for today, I'll be happy. Most folks are as happy as they make up their minds to be. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that a lot of people don't understand or don't believe. They're looking for happiness, but they always think it comes from some other place than from just being happy.
Yeah. A
Just
choice.
deciding, just deciding to be happy with how things are. Just for today, I'll adjust myself to what is, not try to adjust everything to my own desires. I'll take my luck as it comes and fit myself to it. Good luck, bad luck, who knows?
Yeah.
Just for today, I'll strengthen my mind. I will study. I will learn something useful. I will not be a mental loafer. I will read something that requires effort, thought, and concentration. So, kind of working on your skills, strengthening yourself. Just for today, I'll exercise my soul. I'll do somebody a good turn and not get found out. I'll do at least 2 things I don't want to do just for exercise. I won't show anyone that my feelings are hurt. They may be hurt, but today I will not show it. So I'll just tolerate the way things go. I'll be agreeable. I'll look as well as I can, dress becomingly. I'm not sure I've dressed becomingly.
Hey, we should make a whole episode on like modesty and dressing, because I've been thinking about that a lot lately too. Not necessarily modesty, but like dressing for how you want to be and feel and whatever.
Yeah, and dressing in a way that it's nice to look good, but it's not good to play the harlot.
Yeah, and I don't even mean like modesty in terms of like let's talk about it some other time. Keep going.
It's interesting in that Bible where it talks about, oh, don't, all these harlots. It's like, dude, you're walking down my street. Wow. Just for today, I'll have a program. That's what you were talking about before. I'll have a way that I want to handle things. I've got a goal in mind. I've got a decision. I've got some principles that I'm going to use to help me make decisions.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to be a tumbleweed.
Yeah.
Just for today, I'll have a quiet half hour and just relax, try to get a better perspective. And just for today, I'll be unafraid. Especially, I will not be afraid to enjoy what is beautiful and to believe that as I give to the world, so the world will give to me.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's one of my favorite AA meditations. It kind of helps you to put a lot of those steps into perspective and in a way that's, it's nice to have a lot of different ways to enact these principles, to live out the faith.
Yeah.
So keep in conscious contact.
Yeah, it's kind of like they on the Jordan Peterson and Bishop Barron interview, they were talking about why people are leaving the faith, like why people are leaving the Catholic Church. And a huge part of it that Jordan Peterson brought up is like, and Bishop Barron like agreed with this and said it as a point too, is like, we're really not challenging people enough.
Right.
We've had so much time in the church. Watch our accommodation video if you want to learn more about this. But we've had so much time in this church of the idea of like, we can't ask hard things of people or they'll want to leave. But like the complete opposite is true. People want to be challenged and want to
people
be
need to have it needs to be meaningful.
Yes.
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And if you don't stand for something, why would you expect anybody to rally around you?
Yeah. And but that's why
if Jesus doesn't mean anything, if we just dilute the meaning of the Eucharist and the meaning of the worship of the Mass, why would we expect anybody to feel like it's an important thing to get involved in if it's just random?
And even a different idea of like, you're okay the way you are. You don't need to change. Like, you're fine just the way you are. Like, that's not true. That's not true.
Live your truth.
Yeah, like, we are actually called as Catholics to be saints. Every single person is called to be a saint. And what does that mean? It means conforming our life to God. But it's interesting that when you look, they taught, like, I think this is a C.S. Lewis quote of, like, you know, if you look at all the, like, tyrants and dictators and evil people in the world, all their lives are so boring and the same. But, like, you look at the lives of the saints and it's like they're all gloriously different, you know? Like, they all found their,
Really a dynamic life.
yeah, they've all found their own way to be like Christ, right? Because, like, we are called to be Christ, right? Like, to be like
And
Jesus.
to bloom where we're planted, to glorify God in whatever way he sees fit.
Yeah. And so that,
Not that I have to be a martyr, not that I have to die for the faith, but maybe I need to be a martyr by just coming on this show and saying, Jesus is my Lord and I love him.
yeah. I don't know. I just think it's nice that, like, there is so many ways to be like Christ. Like, and we are all capable of doing that.
There's as many ways as there are people.
Yeah.
And the Lord has a dream for all of us. It's just a matter of having the conscious contact to understand God's will for us and the power to enact that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's probably a good place to stop.
That is.
But I don't
Good,
know.
good place to begin.
I hope this was helpful. What do you think? Tell us in the comments if you think the dogs are capable of love. Because this has been a big fight in our family.
I don't know. It sometimes seems like dogs are more capable of love than humans, or at least they seem to fake it better.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's like I said, I also don't think dogs are capable of cruelty, and people are definitely capable of cruelty, even to those that they love, and that's a hard thing. Is
Yeah, I don't think dogs are selfish. They really don't have much ego.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And people do, and people make the choice not to love all the time. You know, it's like I don't. We can end this, but I just
Yeah.
people want happiness to happen to them in the same way that they think love just happens to them. But, like, happiness and love are both a choice, a conscious effort of the will. And that it's when we start thinking that, like, it is just something that happens to us that we say, okay, dogs can love that. And I think that's just like a misunderstanding of what love is. But anyway, if you want to know what love is, look at Jesus on the cross, because that's love. And that's all that I can.
Your Uncle Frank said something once that was really that kind of stuck with me, and he said everybody puts a lot of effort into finding Mr. or Mrs. Right, but really it would be a lot easier if everybody put that same kind of effort into being Mr. or Mrs. Right.
Yeah.
You know, if you work on yourself and if you purify your heart and really look to be your best self all the time,
Yeah.
it would be better. What was that guy's name? Scott? No, the guy who did the best self stuff all the time. Those books.
No, what is his name? Matthew West?
Matthew West, yeah.
No, is that it? Matthew Kelly.
Yeah. It's Christopher West.
Christopher West.
He did the theology of the body stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matthew Kelly is be the best version of yourself.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So be the best version of yourself this week, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Rule number 2 from Beyond Order: try to imagine the best that you could become and aim toward it, or something. I butchered it, but that's basically what it is.
Or
All
as Stevie Wonder said, you got to keep on trying until you reach the higher ground.
right. Amen. All right. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a good week, everyone.
All right.